Hello and welcome, guys. We have messed around a little bit recently with some Esper Charms and some Karn the Great creators, and I do think that it is about time to make a return to the normal here. We're just slamming some good old, straight up Primeval Titans. That's right, we're not playing anything super interesting, I suppose you might say, in our Amulet list. We're just going straight Amulet, and that's how I like it. And yeah, you may notice that this list is basically, if not literally exactly the same as the last time that I played it. And that's because even in the last 4 weeks, the modern meta really has not shifted much. If we head over here to MTG Goldfish, we find that the modern metagame currently is spearheaded by Uro Omnath decks, for which we have a Relic of Progenitus in our sideboard, of course. We also see an appearance of Heliod Company decks, which is interesting. They definitely weren't very well represented before, but in the last 14 days, it seems that Heliod Company has been doing pretty well, in which case we want the maximum number of dismembers that we can have in our sideboard. Of course, we could be playing a fourth, but dismember is an effect that comes at quite some detriment to your own life total, and there's probably no reason to include a fourth dismember. I think 3 is the number where we want to be. We also see Mono Red Aggro and Rakdos Death Shadow on top of the metagame, as per the usual, as you might expect. So, of course, we're on all of our Arboreal Grazers, as per the norm, and we do see our 2 explosives in the side, plus 1 in the main, for the Death Shadow matchup. And, of course, we're going straight Titan, not messing around, trying to put Karn the Great Creator into play against any of these aggressive decks. We're just trying to resolve Primeval Titans and let them do what they do. And yeah, we do still see a little bit of Tron, a little bit of Mono White. In this case, this is a Hammer Time, but there's also, I've seen in the 5.0 dumps, a bit of like Mono White, like Hate Bears slash Death and Taxes kind of strategies, a little bit of Green White Primeval Titan decks here and there, and yeah, I mean the meta is as you expect. I think that the most questionable card in my sideboard right now is the 2 copies of Negate. But I do like having something there to hedge against the control decks while giving us a little bit of game against the combo decks. And Relic of Progenitus already covers Oops All Spells pretty well, so of course we can have Negate for the Ad Nauseam matchup, the Storm matchup perhaps, as well as Relic of Progenitus for the Storm matchup. And yeah, I mean, we could also potentially be cutting a Beast Within. I haven't seen a lot of Eldrazi Tron recently, and 2 Beast Withins I find is generally enough to deal with the Ashioks of the world. So maybe some changes could be made there, swapping these cards out for something else. So if you're looking for any flex slots in the list that I'm playing, then I would choose these 3 cards, but of course that's up to you. I personally have seen a bit of a resurgence in Tireless Tracker in the Amulet sideboard. I've seen some recent well-placing lists playing as many as 3 or 4 trackers in the sideboard, but I will say that I don't find Tracker to be the best possible threat against the Uro Omnath decks or against the Death Shadow decks. Tracker oftentimes just dies to a removal spell. You can't really play it until you have 3 mana in play plus a land drop for turn, which is kind of annoying, and even then you'll still lose your Tracker to a Bolt, most likely. And yeah, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of Tracker. In fact, I'm actually quite close to including 1 copy of Obstinate Baloth in the board to help us deal with those mono-red aggro matchups. You know what? I'm gonna trim one of these Beast Withins to include a Baloth here. So yeah, we are getting this Obstinate Baloth in here to help deal with those mono-red matchups, give us a little bit of additional life gain. Last-minute change here, just because I feel like it. And yeah, everything else is pretty much the same. I will see you guys in match 1. All right, looks like we have a match. Maybe we can be on the play. I haven't played Amulet in a little bit, so I'm quite excited for this, in all honesty. We are on the play. Love it. Playing against Amiz. A-M-I-Z. I don't know how to pronounce that. You expect me to pronounce that? Come on now. And this hand is unfortunately pretty slow. We do have access to some ramp and a Titan, but we're not playing anything until turn 3, which I hate. We're gonna ship this one back. And here we go. All we need to do is draw a 3-drop or a Titan, and this hand becomes quite good, so we're going to keep. And I think the safest ship here is the Crumbling Vestige, perhaps? It gives us an extra way to make a green mana for like a Garen Rig or something, and it is another doubling source for our Amulet, which we're going to have in play on turn 1. I don't know, maybe that's wrong. Maybe we should be shipping the Breeding Pool. The Breeding Pool, combined with the Growth Chamber, will let us transmute Tolaria West. I don't know if that's going to be super relevant here, but we would want to have access to this basic forest if we're playing against a land destruction deck, so it's kind of an odd choice here. I think I'm going to ship back the breeding pool, though. And we'll lead on our turn 1 amulet here, of course. Pass it back. If we draw a 3-drop, we can play it on turn 2 here. We'll see what our opponent does. We casually spent a minute and some, to decide what we're doing with this hand. But that's okay. You gotta take your time on making important decisions like that. We draw a Summoner's Pact. Not really a huge fan of that one. Let's play our Amulet and pass it back here. We can't even pact for an Azusa this upcoming turn and still play Titan. I suppose, nah, no, there's nothing we could have done here, so this passing back is going to be the move, it looks like. Thoughtseize, that's fine. Opponent's on a Island and Sunken Ruins deck. Don't know what that means. The first thing that comes to my mind, because I have played this format for way too long, is Cruel Ultimatum Grixis. That's the place that I most frequently see Sunken Ruins, but of course that's not what our opponent has going on here. We could go ahead and fire off the Summoner's Pact and get a 3-drop into play right now, and just hope to top deck a Titan. I mean, we don't really have a lot going on, and this is the best turn to get something like a Dryad in play, so I kind of think that's what we ought to do. But it feels bad to make ourselves have to top deck a Primeval Titan here. I mean, we just got to get something on the board, though, right? I suppose if we just play a Dryad, then our opponent can just kill it, or play a Liliana and minus us, and that really punishes our line, so I don't know. Let's just be patient here. We'll play out the Snow Forest and pass it back. Feels kind of terrible, though. Our hand is really slow now for some reason. And we're going to yield through this turn since we can't cast Summoner's Pact or we'll die to the trigger this upcoming turn, so. I mean, we just got to play this game the slow way. Which might be fine against a blue-black Thoughtseize deck. I suppose this could be Fairies. Not really sure what would be playing Sunken Ruins these days. See a Field of Ruin. Okay, there's a Dryad. That's pretty good. We could be slamming it straight into a Mana Leak here, which would be pretty awful. Suppose we can play Vestige and then Growth Chamber and play around Mana Leak by playing Dryad one turn from now. I think that's going to be better. I mean, I suppose if we do that, then we are playing into Cryptic Command, but I mean, if our opponent Cryptic Commands our Dryad, that might be good for us, rather than bad. Rough. We can play around Logic Knot right now, if we slam Dryad. We're only really getting punished by Mana Leak. If they reman, we don't care. I'm just going to force them to have the Mana Leak. And if they do, then we can just slam a Titan this upcoming turn. Whether they have Cryptic up or not, depending. Don't Mana Leak us. Do not do it. Remand, please. That's the one we want to see. Remand. Looks like maybe our opponent has Archmage's Charm, but they can't filter their colorless mana into blue here, so maybe we're getting underneath an Archmage's Charm here? Curious. Very interesting. Field of Ruin, our Valakut. Let's float a mana, I suppose. Now we can play around Mana Leak. Not that our opponent can cast it anymore. Okay. So our Dryad is resolving, and yeah, let's just pass it back. Seems fine to me. So clearly we were rewarded by just going straight for the Dryad there. I do think that was the correct play. Let me know in the comments if you think otherwise. I'd be curious to hear your input. And we'll just have to see what our opponent does here. They can just play any land and hold up Cryptic Command this upcoming turn, and that would be kind of difficult for us. Suppose if we top decked exactly Cavernous Souls, then we might be okay in that situation, assuming they don't counter our Summoners Pact, which most people wouldn't, but sometimes it's the right play. Alright, there's our land to represent Cryptic Command here. Bounce land, not super fantastic. Let's play out a bounce land, the growth chamber here, and get our land drop value out of our Dryad before we potentially lose it to like a fatal push or something. We'll float a color just because. I don't think we're just slamming a Titan into Cryptic Command yet. I suppose we could have held up our second land drop in case they didn't do anything to our Dryad, but did something in combat. That doesn't really make any sense, though. If they're doing anything, they're killing our Dryad, and that would deny us our second land drop anyway, so I think it's fine to just go ahead and play out the forest there. There's the Archmage's Charm that we suspected they had last turn. They chose not to steal our Amulet, which is probably the right choice. Even without Amulet, we could still cast Titan this upcoming turn, so I guess we wouldn't necessarily be able to attack with it, but it might be a little gutsy to go straight for the haste and attack with a Titan. Although, to be honest, if we resolve our Titan with Amulet in play, getting Valakut plus a Hanweir represents a lot of damage through Dryad as well, so it wouldn't necessarily be the worst. It actually doesn't even have to be a Valakut, though, considering that our Dryad can fix for red here, so we could get like a Tolaria West and a Hanweir and be able to go for the haste, and if they do have the thing to punish us for that line, then we can just pick up and transmute the Tolaria West using our second land drop, so or our first land drop, depending on if we play any lands that turn. So we have a lot of options here. Our opponent is just going ahead and passing it back. They thought about casting some stuff, and then they didn't. All right, let's cast this Explorer right here. Might as well. They Cryptic counter tap our Dryad. I do not care. Another Explorer, you say? Okay, well, let's cast that one as well, I suppose. I mean, we're playing it into a Mana Leak again, but if they Mana Leak this, I actually think that we can just resolve a Titan, right? Because we still have... We've made no land drops, and, well, we made one for the Explorer. So we still have 3 land drops? Question mark? I don't know. Let's go to combat and attack here. I don't see a reason to play, once again, a Titan into Cryptic Command, especially before combat, since they could counterbounce our Dryad, and that would be pretty annoying. Let's play an Amulet here, I suppose. Don't see anything wrong with that. Suppose our opponent could play a red land and like Kolgan's Command to make us discard a card, in which case we might have wanted to discard the Amulet, but I'm not really seeing it with our opponent's mana base currently, so not playing around that. Yeah, I guess we're done. Don't need to show our opponent our second bounce land here. Snapcaster Mage. Archmage's Charm to draw 2 cards again. Okay. I mean, we could very easily just get straight up buried here, so this is not really the best possible situation for us. Maybe our opponent will get antsy and want to tap out during their main phase, considering we haven't tried to cast a Titan for several turns already. That can happen. But if our opponent is a seasoned control player, then they will play around that. They'll know what's up here. They won't just assume we have nothing. Narset. That's totally fine. They're still holding up some kind of interaction here. We're not planning on drawing extra cards, so... Oh, they got a Fatal Push. Intriguing. Let's see, if they fetch Fatal Push here, then we're most certainly just slamming a Titan immediately. We'll probably play around Mana Leak this time by playing out a bounce land first. It looks like they're going straight for the push. So maybe they've decided that it's totally fine. We can Summoner's Pact on their instep to play around Force. That doesn't play around Mana Leak, but they didn't have Mana Leak 2 turns straight already, so we'd be able to pay 4 and have exactly 6 to be able to cast our Titan. So I'm going to Summoner's Pact right now. Force Negation, we don't care about you. What's our opponent got here? Do they have the Mana Leak? Have they just been sandbagging it, or do they just top deck it here? They did use the push that they got off of the Narset, so we know they didn't find a Mana Leak off Narset. If they have any kind of interaction, then... Yeah, I don't know. We couldn't beat a Mana Leak anyway, so at least by playing around Force here, then we're making one of our opponent's cards worse. What have they got? They have the Mana Leak. Okay, well, let's just top deck a Titan anyways. Alright, Titan, off the top, let's go. Another Amulet, not really the best. We're gonna hold on to that one so that we can have something extra to discard here if our opponent does have something like Liliana of the Veil. But yeah, looking pretty horrible now. I don't think we're ever gonna get another chance to cast Titan that was as juicy as that one. So just had to hope our opponent didn't have it, and they did, which is fine. That does happen. We've got a better chance this upcoming game with some of our sideboard cards, I dare say. So the reason we're not scooping here is because we could potentially draw Cavern of Souls and a Primeval Titan and still be able to resolve a Titan and maybe do some stuff that way. Breeding Pool. Not really the best, but that's okay. We'll play that one out and pass it back. If our opponent didn't have the mana leak there, I think they were dead. But of course, they played in such a way that their mana leak would be effective, so. I wonder if they have the Force. They are drawing cards with Archmage's Charm. Okay, okay. They don't want to steal one of our 2 amulets, not knowing that we have the third one in hand. Ladies and gentlemen, this is why if you're on our opponent's side of the table, you don't just immediately go for stealing Amulet with Archmage's Charms because of exactly this situation. What is Amulet even doing for us here? It's basically doing nothing. They get to Thoughtseize away our Amulet of Vigor. I mean, it's probably better that we did 2 damage to them than having this Amulet in hand. There's a Titan. Now, I guess we're waiting to draw a Cavern. Unless they tap out for something here. It would be dangerous for them to start casting more things like Thoughtseize, assuming that we drew a Primeval Titan. Because they might just be doing more damage to themselves for literally no reason. For all they know, we could have just drawn another land that we didn't want to play or something. A Windswept Heath. This one has no more targets, right? I think this one has no targets, so we're definitely saving that one. Very rare that a Windswept Heath has 0 targets. I guess that's what happens when we naturally draw a basic land in the breeding pool and they Field of Ruin us to get another basic land out. Also worth noting, our opponent does have access to Mystic Sanctuary here, so Relic of Progenitus looking pretty good. Even though they don't have things like Uro. They do also have Snapcaster Mage, so Relic can be good at kind of interacting with what our opponent is doing here. To be honest, if we resolve a Primeval Titan, I don't really know what we're going to be doing with it, so. I mean, I guess it would be getting a Tolaria West and transmuting it for something. They have a mana leak. Luckily, our double Amulet draw does not care whatsoever about mana leak. We're really trying to play around Cryptic Command here, in all honesty, and our opponent just firing off a Cryptic to bounce draw their Narset definitely indicates to me that they have another copy of Cryptic Command in their hand here, so our only, well, I mean, we could try to slam Titans 2 turns in a row. Not really in love with that idea. Do we play out the Windswept Heath? I guess we do. They are playing Clink to Dust. It's interesting. This is one that we were trying in Esper just a little bit ago, and I found it to be quite good. I personally said that it feels like more of a main board card than a sideboard card, and our opponent seems to agree. Of course, it's a little different when you're playing straight blue-black, but still. Jace the Mind Sculptor, you got it. I don't know why we're not just F6ing here. They scryed a card to the top of our deck. It's probably not a Cavern of Souls. Spoiler alert. Azusa. Yeah, I mean, we'll play that. Sure. So we have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We could double Titan here. Our opponent has a mana leak. So they could have mana leak plus a Cryptic Command exactly. So I think we need to wait a turn on this at the very least. They probably have a removal spell for our Azusa anyways, but I mean, we can only do what we can. And I don't think just casting double Titan this turn does anything. So eliminate, sure, whatever. This is gripping gameplay, you guys. Just sitting here and hoping that we top deck a Cavernous Souls. Riveting, am I right? That's not a Cavernous Souls. Let's play out this Rot Farm, I suppose. We do have one more turn here. We're going to need to unyield these amulets, I'm now realizing. We do have one more turn here to potentially draw a Cavernous Souls, and then we probably just have to start slamming Primeval Titans. So, we can't let ourselves get down to 2 before we start casting Titans, because then just Cryptic tapping our team and then attacking with Snap will win the game. So, this upcoming turn is the turn. And let's go ahead and remove that yield to... Let's yield through the turn here. Let's remove the yield to Amulet of Vigor. I don't think it did it. Remove selected. We drew the Vesuva, which is actually kind of annoying in all honesty, but we'll see what we can do here. Let's first play out a Growth Chamber, I suppose. Alright, we'll untap. Float, untap. Float. And we'll pick up a bounce land. The Growth Chamber, it would seem. Let's, I guess, try to leave relevant colors floating, that being the blue, of course. Here comes the first counterspell. 4, 5, 6. We have exactly enough to cast another Titan here, so our hope is that our opponent doesn't have... Actually, no, we can't just slam a Titan here because we know they have a mana leak, right? So we have to pass and let ourselves die to a Cryptic tap. Yay! And they have fetch lands to get more Sanctuaries, which I'm sure they play at least 1 or 2 more of, so our opponent's Jace is about to ultimate us. Things are looking, they're looking pretty good for us. I think we definitely have a chance here. You see what I'm saying? Let's see, 5, 6. So I guess we can lead on the Dryad here, which is kind of nice. We're going to play a bounce land here, of course, to get maximum mana, trying to play around mana leak and all that good stuff. Here goes a Dryad. Now we can get something like, excuse me, Valakut and Field of the Dead, and be like relatively alright. This Jace is still a turn from ultimating. Okay, they're countering our Dryad. That's cool. Yep, and this is playing around mana leak, so this is what we got. Does it go through? That is the question. Looks like the answer is no. Alright, well, that is all we needed to see. Let's go to sideboarding. Alright, so against our opponent, we want negates. We want Relic of Progenitus to interact with their graveyard cards. I don't mind Baloth as a way to play around something like a Liliana of the Veil or otherwise a discard spell. It's a nice attacker against a Ashiok or a Drace. So I think Baloth is probably a-okay here. And of course we want Beast Withins. And what do we not want here? Grazer is one of the worst cards in our deck against them. It does help save off Snap Beats a little bit, but I'm not really concerned about that, to be honest. What else? Azusa is kind of bad here, but not so bad that I want to cut it. We can trim 1 amulet. We're going to go long enough that we'll either already have the mana in play to get a Titan into play, or we'll have multiple amulets anyway, so we can afford to shave on that one just a little bit. What else? What else? Turn Timber plays kind of awkwardly into Force of Negation, but it's a better land to have drawn than some of our other options. I think we can't afford to cut Radiant Fountain in case our opponent has, like, Vanillion Click or something. In fact, maybe we should be bringing in a pair of Dismembers in case we need to deal with our opponent's threats. I'm sure they have some kind of flying thing to clock us with. They're not just winning by Snap Beats and Jace Ultimates, most likely, especially post-sideboard. Let's see, what else? We can trim a Garen Brig. I think that's not a terrible choice. We can trim a Summoner's Pact, maybe, to play around Ashiok, although I do like Summoner's Pact in general in this matchup. making us tap out the turn after we play it. It's kind of an awkward situation for aligning threat into threat and 2 consecutive turns to try to exhaust our opponent's counter magic. Um, Engineered explosives can go. What else? What else? I think. Hmm. I think maybe we can wait on these dismembers. I don't know. I'm gonna trim one more amulet, I think, and one summoner's pact, I suppose. I don't know. I do like pact. Let's trim one Azusa, I guess. This is how I'm choosing to play it. Well, beyond the play, of course. We have a relic. Have some lands. I mean, we need to draw more lands and more things, but I mean, we can't afford to mulligan this. We're trying to play a slow game against our opponent here. Anyways, we'll play turn 1 relic, of course, and pass it back. It's possible our Bajuka Bog will be incredibly relevant as well, so maybe not as much with a relic already in hand, but our opponent mulligans to 6 and then to 5. Kind of unfortunate for them. I wonder if they're mulliganing to look for some kind of hate piece like a Ashiok, or if they're just genuinely mulling bad hands. Who knows? We'll lead on turn 1 a relic, and we'll pass it back. And it's kind of annoying that we have to use our time to not crack relic, but tap relic. But we'll make do. Summoner's Pact. Okay, let's play this tapped breeding pool. I think. I don't know. That's probably a mistake. We could have played a 3-drop this upcoming turn had we drawn it. If we played Bajuka Bog instead of breeding pool there, so that's kind of a unfortunate thing that I chose to do, but that's okay. We also could have just held up Beast Within for an Ashiok if they just decided to just slam Ashiok for some reason. Okay, Cavern actually is pretty good. Not slamming anything. No need to hold up a Beast Within this turn, I think. So play it slow, pass it back. Cavern Souls was a fantastic pickup. If we can just top deck a bounce land into... Actually, a bounce land by itself would give us type mana, so a single bounce land will make this hand great. Do not want to have to play out this Cavern of Souls as our 4th land drop if we can avoid it, so we can keep it safe from, like, a Field of Ruin or something like that. But we'll see. Does this list play 2 caverns? It might. Let me see. 1 cavern. Oh, man. Would have liked to have access to a 2nd cavern here. Maybe that's something to keep in mind for the wrap-up here and possible changes to the deck. When they fetch, we'll relic them, of course. Give them no options. Options are a bad thing to give your opponent, even if it seems like an option that's inconsequential, such as whether they exile a Polluted Delta or something else from their graveyard. Don't give them the option. For example, maybe they were trying to hold up an opt or something and they wanted to cast a Cling to Dust on their own fetch land, and by fetching, if we just immediately exile the Delta, we deny them from doing both. Bounce land. Castle. That's actually a pretty good one. Let's play that one out and pass it back again. We're playing the slow game. Another fetch land. You know what that means, Relic of Progenitus? Alright, I don't think we can afford to, sit on this Cavern of Souls, so let's just play it out, pass it back. Not jamming a Titan into our opponent's obvious Cryptic Command mana, so they haven't cast a single thing this game. We've cast only a Relic of Progenitus. This is, obviously pure magic. At least we can cast our Negate here. That's kind of nice. Would we negate an Archmage's Charm? I'm kind of into that. Yeah, let's just use our mana here and stop our opponent from getting ahead of us. I don't see a reason not to do this. Seems pretty, what's the word? Free? Yeah, seems pretty free. Our opponent did not expect us to negate this. It's pretty obvious by their reaction here. Are they going to force a negation to protect their Archmage's Charm? Ooh! Force pitching Remand? Now that is what I call value. Let's again give them no option. They can fetch here to save their force if they really want that one particularly in their graveyard, but they didn't even try, so pass it back. If they want to do something like Misty Sanctuary this back or get a Snapcaster Mage, we can't just pop our Relic, which is by no means a bad choice. Our opponent pitching a remand to this force here. That makes me feel like this negate play was super overpowered. that negate did way more than I wanted it to. Way more. And they do have the field, which is kind of unfortunate. Are we popping Relic? I think that we are. Might as well here. Try to get this untapped land to cast Titan with Cavern here if they don't immediately Field of Ruin us. And doing so would allow us to top deck a untapped land. Actually, no, that would allow us to just cast Titan into their 3 open mana. We would be playing into Remand or Mana Leak or Aether Gust, but none of those things matter. Cryptic Command is what matters. And of course, we can't, unfortunately, draw a untapped source here. So now our opponent's going to have free reign to Field of Ruin our Cavernous Souls, but not much we can do about it. Still not playing into Cryptic Command or Mana Leak by activating Garen Brig here. Let's just try to find a bounce land or something. Growth Chamber off the top. Let's go. There we go. Awesome. Oh, and now, if they don't respond to this, we'll pick up our Cavernous Souls and they can't Field of Ruin it. Sweet. I'm sold. Works for me. They probably should have Field of Ruined there. Of course, we're not playing out the Cavernous Souls back into our opponent's open Field of Ruin. A little unfortunate that we can't really play around Aether Gust here, but I suppose if we had held on to the negate, then maybe we could have, but let's see, we have currently 4, 5, 6, 7, so no, we still wouldn't be able to play around negate while still activating Cavernous Souls. We could, like, activate Garen Brig and hold up negate that way, but that doesn't really help us in any particular capacity, so Field of Ruin the Growth Chamber. Interesting. Okay. That's cool with me. We still get to cast Titan this upcoming turn. I might be interested in throwing a Beast Within at one of our opponent's lands here. Probably the Grave. Might be a little hasty, though. We don't want to just lose to the Beast token. Huh. Well, our opponent doesn't have Field of Ruin for a Cavern anymore, which is nice. Let's just do the Slam Jam Titan into play thing here. Tapping for that uncounterable mana, of course. Let's see the Aether Gust. Go ahead and cast it. Or they just concede. That's totally fine with me too. Remember when we kept a hand with 3 non-special lands and we're just like, we'll draw into it. You know, it'll be fine. Yeah, I don't really see anything to change here. Do we want the 4th Summoner's Pact? Probably not. Reclamation Sage, probably not. These Dismembers were kind of rotting in our hand. Doesn't mean our opponent doesn't have something like Vanillion Click, but I think I'd rather not have dead cards sitting around. So we'll bring in the 3rd Amulet and perhaps the Summoner's Pact, perhaps the Garen Brig. Not really sold either way. I think we're going to want access to top decks here, most likely. Let's get this pact. Also worth noting that we can Summoner's Pact for a Baloth in response to some sort of discard effect that'll make us discard a card, and then we can just slam Baloth into play and then pay for it during our next upkeep. It's a tech play that you can make when you have Summoner's Pact in your hand. Excuse me. My throat's been itching me a little bit here. Yep, this hand seems good. We got a bounce in, we got a Garen Brig to get to Titan mana, we got Beast Within for an Ashiok, we got Negate to interact. I like this hand. Not much else to say about it. Tapped Hollow, go. Cool, cool. Tapped Field of Dead, go. Of course, we're yielding here. Nothing to cast, nothing to do. Okay, Breeding Pool is kind of a nice one. We get the Bajuka Bog out there. I think we can save Bajuka Bog for something else. Let's get our Breeding Pool into play tapped here. You know what? We should have shocked it to be able to answer an opponent's Ashiok preemptively, but if they just tap out for Ashiok, then I'm slamming Dryad. So maybe it's no big deal. I don't know. It would have probably been worth the 2 life just to represent. Yeah, I don't really care about Narset, so I suppose if we slam Dryad now, though, we'll be playing into our opponent just slamming a Jace, which is kind of unfortunate, but they have access to a Force of Negation here. That one's an interesting one to know about. Yeah, I think we're just playing a Dryad, so here goes Forest. Don't want to show our opponent the Garen Brig if we don't have to. And this is not a graveyard. Our opponent has no graveyard. Um, I guess we just play the Bog. It feels like kind of a waste. Nah, I'm going to save the Bog. Alright, Garen Brig. And let's pass it back. Garen Brig doesn't look like it's going to be the super most important here. See what else our opponent gets from their Narset, of course. We might just go ahead and clock the Narset for 2, so that they don't have something they can bounce with their own Cryptic Command for value. It's a very small advantage, but it is a relevant one. If we do draw a Titan and feel like slamming it into our opponent's open mana, then we can always play Growth Chamber after floating mana, pick up the Basic Forest, and play Basic Forest and be able to activate Garen Brig for Titan mana, so that is something we have access to. It really depends on what our opponent does here. If our opponent does something like plays a Thoughtseize, plays some land... Oh, they have Aether Gust. That's, that one kind of sucks, not gonna lie. Second Field of Ruin. I don't know how to feel about that one. Are they just activating it? What are they doing here? Are they going for our Garen Brig? Let's float a colored mana here. Not blue, because we don't want our opponent to realize that we have access to negate here. Our opponent's not going to cast anything into this mana, so it makes absolutely no difference, but of course they're just holding up Aether Gust and passing here, so let's get basic forest of the kind that we don't already have in play. The non-snow basic forest, so we have a diversity of names for this Field of the Dead here, which our opponent could have chosen to hit with their Field of Ruin, now I'm thinking about. So I'm not really sure the reasoning behind that Field of Ruin target there, the Garen Brig. I guess they want us not to cast a Titan this upcoming turn, which makes no sense considering that our opponent has an Aether Gust that they can cast. So I have no clue what our opponent is doing over there, but that's okay. If we draw an untapped source, we can play Dryad with negate backup for the Aether Gust. We can actually still do that Gust. Now, do we care about this? Do we really that badly need to get this Narset out of play? I don't think that we do. Let's just let that happen and bottom it and play another Dryad and be like, whatever. There's a Dryad. Here's a Bog to permanently exile this Aether Gust. Snapcaster Mage, you don't get any kind of say here. Are we playing the Growth Chamber into our opponent's open Field of Ruin? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If they do field us, we can pick up an untapped land, such as a forest, so that we'll be able to cast Titan this upcoming turn anyways. Yeah, I guess it's worth it. If they want to Field of Ruin our Growth Chamber, then they're not answering our Field of the Dead, so I'll pick up the Snow Forest, so that if we have to discard it to something, then we have a second Snow Forest in our deck. Okay. Now we'd like to draw one of those threats that we have. Although we're not doing bad here, we're still managing to have the upper hand here in these exchanges. It would have been nice to have access to negate here to answer like a Jace the Mind Sculptor or something, because Jace minusing to bounce our Dryad would actually be kind of annoying. Okay. Ghost Quarter. Okay. Well, we can trigger Feel the Dead this turn. And I think we're going to immediately go to play 2 land drops just to do exactly that. Before our opponent gets the chance to Field of Ruin us. If they gust our Dryad, then what? I don't know. Okay, get our token before our opponent can stop that from happening. Important to get these additional threats for no cost to us while we can. We won't always have this opportunity, so... And we might be at the stage of Beast Within one of our own lands here just to get a clock into play. Alright, let's not cast anything pre-combat here. That would make no sense. We'll attack the Narset. Might as well. If we didn't, it would be straight up telling our opponent we're not playing Uro or Tireless Tracker or anything like that they need to worry about. And secondly, like I said, this is one that they could target to bounce with their own Cryptic Command. Eliminate. Do we care about this? I don't think we want to fight over it. They obviously can't Cryptic to bounce it this turn, so time to commit this Azusa. Holding up Beast Within and Negate, so we still are managing to apply pressure here. Where's our opponent got here for the Azusa? Fetching. Are they activating Field of Ruin? Targeting the field? Yep, okay. We do have a basic land to search. Man, wouldn't it be so sick if we just had a Primeval Titan to just slam right here with our 6 open mana? That was a potentially egregious play. Now we can send this Azusa at the Narset for the 1 point of damage that's required to get it out of play and clock them with the zombie. We still are miles and miles away from actually killing our opponent, but now we have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now we can cast Titan with Negate back up, so looking pretty alright here. I am kind of inclined to just go ahead and Beast it within one of our own things, but let's give that a little bit of time. Cavernous Souls is amazing. Amazing. Now we'd like to top deck a Primeval Titan. This one goes at Narset, this one goes at them. Now we'll be able to cast Titan with protection from Aether Gust and not have to worry about some kind of counter magic like Cryptic Command. So there's that. Snapcaster Mage, targeting Eliminate. Eliminate. Do we commit this Beast Within or not? Hard choices. Let's see what they block. Probably blocking the Azusa, I have to assume. That's the most logical thing. Yeah, I mean, you can eliminate our zombie if you want. Going for the eliminate. We can Beast Within our own zombie to get the permanent out of it. To be honest, though, I feel like that is not going to be relevant. We would just lose our token, our beast here, to a Cryptic Command with bounce as one of the modes, and we don't want that to happen, especially considering we now have Cryptic Command covered with our Cavernous Souls, so let's just be patient here, not lose to an Ashiok or something, so we can negate it, and if they have backup, then just Beast Within it, or vice versa. Yeah, that one seems like a negate target to me. And if it does resolve by some stretch of the imagination, we can Beast Within. This is exactly why we didn't negate their thing. And there's the Primeval Titan. Well, this game is OVER. Alright, get into play, Cavernous Souls. What are you doing, giant? What is this doing? It's lagging out or something. Alright, so let's do this. Get this giant into play. Boom. Yep, and this was just the best possible sequence that we could have imagined. I wonder if our opponent scoops to have resolved Primeval Titan again. There we go. That's the win. Well, I have to admit that game was that match was very straightforward, very well played, I would think. And let me know if you would have done anything differently in these matches. But yeah, I mean, it's always fun to slap around some control opponents because you have enough wit about you to keep your cool and know what situations you can win in and what situations that you just have to accept defeat. And yeah, that's all I can say about it. Hopefully that you enjoyed this match, and if you did, or if you learned something from it, then that is the goal. And if that occurred for you, then go ahead and leave a like, a comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. I do pay attention to my entire community, which is currently very small, but that is a-okay. And I will see you guys in the next match. This is Redface Menace, signing off.